All right, welcome to the video, everybody. To those of you new to my channel, welcome. I want to talk to you all about something that I recently saw on social media related to tree work. Kind of have a strong opinion about it, and I think that it could be a great educational opportunity. But before we get into the discussion, real quick, the footage you're seeing on the screen, this is from a crane job that I did. Some of the clips are recycled from the original video that I had uploaded showing that job. If you haven't seen that video already and you're interested, check it out. Now let's get into the discussion. So recently I came across a video from a climber who I've been following for years. And in that video, he was climbing, removing a tree, and using a pole saw to cut and free fall the very topmost branches of the top of the tree. So picture a climber about 3/4 of the way up, and instead of just using the chainsaw to take a bigger top, he's using the pole saw to piece out the very topmost branches. And I was very disappointed in some of the comments that people were making, saying things like, he doesn't know how to climb, or he's too afraid to climb higher, unprofessional, that anybody that knows how to climb shouldn't have to use a pole saw. And I strongly disagree with these comments. And I'm going to explain why. A couple of different reasons. Well, first and foremost, I myself have used a pole saw on the tree. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of the situation where I found it helpful. One was a birch tree removal. Not a huge tree, but there was a fence nearby, another tree. So I climbed it, and my intention was to piece it out. But when I got towards the top, I really just was hesitant of what I was seeing. Wasn't quite comfortable climbing higher to piece out the very tops. So I used the pole saw in the tree to cut off some of the smaller branches. Ended up putting a line in it and then pulling it over. Another example was a smaller tree removal. I climbed as high as I felt comfortable going. It was a thinner tree, so I really just was not comfortable going all the way to the top without having a tie-in in a nearby tree. And there was no tree close enough nearby that I could tie into. So I climbed as high as I felt comfortable with and used the pole saw to free fall smaller branches as high as I could reach. And then I installed a line and pulled it over. Another example, I was removing a large limb that went far out over a structure, good sized limb, and about halfway through the limb, couldn't see it from the ground. You have to see it from above when you're in the tree. There was like a hollow/crack in it. And I, again, was hesitant to go out past a certain point because I obviously didn't want the limb to break over the structure. So I went in as far as I felt comfortable, and then using a pole saw, pieced out the very end of it. I even used the pole saw to set the rigging line because, as I said, I didn't feel comfortable going past any farther. So I pieced the very end of the limb out, and then I was able to just cut the wood with the chainsaw. So these are examples where using a pole saw could come in handy. Now, maybe in these situations, maybe I could have climbed higher or climbed farther out on that limb and been okay. But I knew that there was an alternative way that I could go about doing the job that I felt more confident in. And it wasn't because of a lack of skill or anything like that. It's just that I tend to be more cautious and careful when I'm climbing. And part of that may be because I am a business owner. I'm the one that has to deal with any issues that arise. And I take pride in my work. I take pride in what I do. So I rather ensure that the job is getting done safely and right than potentially risk something happening. And when we talk about being comfortable in the tree, it's not just with the work itself and, being able to accurately assess all the different possibilities and outcomes, but the fear and anxiety factor, I've talked about this in previous videos. It might not be something that people talk about a lot, but dealing with fear and nervousness up in the tree, especially when you start getting up to height. Are you comfortable climbing higher and taking out, the tippity top branches? Or are you more comfortable just free falling with a pole saw? There's multiple ways to get a job done safely. And it doesn't need to be a competition of who can get it done the fastest. I think that there's a time and place to maybe push the limits a little, advance your skills as a climber, but there's also a time when you need to know what you're comfortable with and what your capabilities are. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with skill. It could just be psychological, what you feel comfortable and confident with. And criticizing another climber because they may do things slightly differently than what the average climber does, or because they are a little extra cautious, is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, and irresponsible. Social media and online forums can be a great place for tree workers to connect and learn from each other, but this kind of negativity, it's just not called for, and it doesn't do any good. At the end of the day, you have to do what you think is right, not just in regards to the best way to complete a job, but also your safety when you're up in the tree. And you best be sure to never allow those kind of negative comments or mocking dictate your decision-making processes. You certainly do not want to find yourself in a situation where you're doing something that you're just really not comfortable with, or you're rushing simply because someone else may not approve of the way you do things. That's their problem. And if it's the case of your employer, if you work for someone else, well, if somebody's going to give you that hard of a time, and it's not coming from a place of trying to help you further your skills and growth as a climber, well, then maybe you want to reconsider working for them.